Good day, everyone. I know we're all in different places, so I will refrain from saying good morning. I'll just say good day and hello, everyone. Thank you for being on the call. Thank you, Vesa, for the opportunity to present today. My name is Derah Onuorah, and I'm a product manager on the Copilot Studio team. And I work on agent flows as well as actions and then also human in the loop capabilities in Copilot Studio. So in this session, this demo is primarily on one specific part of human in the loop, but I thought to just take the time to introduce human in the loop in case we're not familiar with it. Feel free to stop me to ask any questions. Feel free to also reach out after the session with questions. So what is human in the loop? Human in the loop involves embedding human judgment into AI workflows like agents and automation so people can review, validate, or provide input at key steps to ensure accuracy, accountability, and trust. This is a topic that has become more and more important because we are in the agentic era. We're in an era where we are offloading a lot of tasks to AI models, to AI agents, and AI automations. However, because we as humans know the context of the process. We know how the process should flow end to end. We know what's wrong. We know what's right. Human in the loop is important because we can provide that input, provide approvals, provide guidance to these automations and agents and AI systems to make sure that the process is carried out correctly. So in agent flows and in Microsoft Copilot Studio, we're beginning to expand human in the loop capabilities and offerings. I'll show you one of the things that we announced recently, which is request for information. It's a new action in agent flows. It's new, so we're still making improvements. And across Copilot Studio, we are going to be making enhancements to human in the loop capabilities. So what is request for information, or RFI? It's a new action in Copilot Studio agent flows that allows you to capture information from an assigned human, and the submitted information can be used back inside the rest of the flow. So it's under the human in the loop section when you're building an agent flow. An agent flow is an offering in Copilot Studio that lets you build AI automations. So if you haven't checked out agent flows in Copilot Studio, please check it out and you will find this capability there. Before we go into the demo, let's go step by step to see how it works. First, the maker builds the flow and builds the RFI. If I'm saying RFI, I just mean request for information. Builds the RFI action in the flow with a title, a message, assignees, required inputs. So you can think of this kind of like an approval. We have approvals in agent flows today that let you send approval requests to people. But this is more of like a superset of approvals. Typically, approvals, you're collecting binary inputs, yes or no, approve, reject. But here you can collect a plethora of information that you want. You can collect text, numbers, emails, yes or no, and dates. Now, when the agent flow reaches the RFI action, it pauses, right? Because that request is being sent to the assigned humans. Now, an email message is sent to the assignees and with the requested inputs you defined. Now, for now, we're only sending emails, but our hope is to expand this to getting these notifications in Teams and getting these notifications in other places as well. When the reviewer submits the form, whoever submits the form first, that person's response is captured. The submitted inputs then become parameters that are available to the flow, and the flow resumes and use those parameters downstream. So this is how the UX looks like in agent flows. You're able to provide a title, you're able to provide an accompanying message, you're able to define who the request for information is going to be sent to, you're able to configure inputs and also add more inputs. All right, so with that, this is the deck I have to share. I think we can then go into doing the live demo. I'll stop sharing this and share another screen. So we're here in Copilot Studio. Typically, of course, when you come into Copilot Studio, you land on this page. But if you go to flows, this is where you find agent flows. And in here, you can create a new agent flow. Agent flow is just an AI automation that you can run standalone, or you can also use it as a tool inside of your agent. So, specifically, I want to show you the request for information action. So we're going to build a very bare bones flow, and then eventually I'll take you into another flow that we have fleshed out a bit more. So I'm just going to select any trigger that I have, manually trigger a flow. This is what would trigger the flow. So that means for this flow to run, it has to be manually triggered. Now I'm going to add the request for information action. And remember, we saw it right here. So request for information. And with that, I can easily and simply start configuring these requests. So one example is, I don't know, what should I do? Request quote of the day. And then you can ask a simple, this is not really a business process. I'll show you one in a business process, but to get the point across, I'll just say, Professor, please give me quote of the day. Now, Vesa, I don't think your email is in this tenant, but so I'll just put mine for now. But you could put Vesa's email, and then you can collect the inputs you want from him. So I'll put text, and I'll define this input as quote. What is the quote of the day? I can also add Boolean variables. So yes or no. Are you happy? You can collect dates. When is the next community call? So what is going to happen is that when this flow runs, it's going to get to this step, send that request. When the inputs are collected, we can use those inputs actually as parameters in the rest of the flow. So let's say I wanted to send an email after getting this request. I could put the responses that I get inside of this email. So remember, the inputs we configured from that action were quote, are you happy? When is the next community call? And I can actually put them in here in an email, or I can put them in any other action as parameters. And when they run, they will automatically be populated here. So that's the request for information action. This is just a very simple and non-business process scenario. But now let's look at this maybe in the context of how you would use this in a business process. So here I have an insurance claims flow, and when the flow is triggered, I'm going to capture the claim information. I'm going to run this through an AI prompt. So the AI prompt does a determination based on the information. Is an assessor needed? Is an assessor for this insurance claim needed? Now I have a conditional branch here that says, is the assessor needed? This is determined by the AI model. If the assessor is needed, then we're going to send a request to the assessor to get extra information. So you can see this is the same request for information action that we configured in the other tab. Here I've given it a title. I've said assessment needed on claim with ID this. This is the message that I'm going to pass. So these inputs, like these messages that I'm sending, can also be dynamic. Here it's generated by an AI model. Then here I'm assigning it to myself. And then these are the inputs I'm going to collect. I'm going to collect assessment date with a date type. I'm going to collect whether or not a site inspection was needed. Are there any indicators of fraud? What are the details of fraud? What's the estimated damage? And what are the assessment notes? But for each of these fields that I'm collecting, I can also make them optional, or I can make them required. So you have that flexibility to determine whether you want to force a response to a particular input. Also, for text inputs, it's not just a text field I can ask for. I can ask for multi-select, or I can ask for single select. So if I want to provide options for people to select from, instead of just providing a text field, I can also build that here. So think of it as like a form that is sent to someone, and that form can be used directly inside of the flow. Now, the rest of the flow just goes through an approval. And then if the claim is approved, we send an approval email. If the claim is rejected, we send a rejection email. So this is the request for information action in context of an insurance claims process. The AI determined that, hey, we need a request for information from an assessor. So we sent that request automatically, got the information, and brought it back into the flow. Now you can think of this for several different scenarios. It could be, let's say you're running a business, a process, and you need to collect information from different stakeholders. You can send all these requests and collate that response and then use it in your flow. Or another flow that I built last week for, I was working with, we're doing some studies with customers. The scenario was that when AI generated something, they wanted to send that text for approval to a human. So what we did is that we had the AI prompt generate the text for a blog, and then it was sent to a human. The human read it, and the human gave feedback. Any feedback the human gave, we were able to pass it into the next prompt so the prompt can revise that. So that's another thing you can do to involve humans in the loop with your AI automations. Okay, so we've shown this in the flow, but now I think it's actually time to test this. Let's see it in action. So I'm going to publish the flow and I'm going to test. Now, what I'm going to do is just go to Outlook. So the flow is running now. It's publishing. In a second, it'll start running. Let's try that again. Oh, this is how you know it's a live demo. Okay, I think the flow is running now. So cool. So remember, this is the flow we just built. The flow is running. It has gone through the trigger. It's been successful. Now it has entered the branch, determining whether a human assessor is needed. And we see that because it entered the true branch, the assessor was needed and a request for information was sent. Okay, so now we see here that it's still spinning. So it's waiting on this request. The flow is waiting on this request. If I go to my inbox and I refresh, the email should come in here. Let's give it a second. But here in the status, we can see, of course, the action is still waiting for that response. Once we provide the response, the rest of the flow will continue. Okay, there we go. The email has arrived. So you see 8:30 this morning. And we see here that we can respond to the request. So it says, hi, you're getting this request. By the way, this message, remember, was AI generated, right? Based on the claims, the provided information in the claim. So here we can provide the information that was requested. We see a date picker for a date, so you can always be sure that the date is formatted in a specific way. Remember, the yes or no value that we said, was a site inspection done? Yes. Were there any fraud indicators? No. I'll just say, and we see the placeholder text. It says, if you answered yes to the preceding question, please provide details here. No indicators. And okay, I'll just say, because this is no, I'll say NA, no fraud indicators. Estimated damage amount, let's say 4,600. Assessment notes, everything looks good to me. And look, we're going to submit this. And we're going to go back into the flow. You can see this should update, and it just did. It took us almost 3 minutes to respond to that. And then it's going through an approval. If it's approved, this email will go out to the claimant. And if rejected, the rejection email will go out. And so you can see how in an automation, we orchestrate it without leaving the automation. Because typically what customers would have to do, they would have to build a Power App to get this information and then plumb it back into the flow, or they'd have to chase down, someone manually in the real world, get that information and find a way to put it in the flow. But here you can dynamically send requests to humans in the loop, get that information, and then feed it to the rest of the flow. You can also then use this flow with this action in your agent. So whenever the agent needs information for something, it can actually trigger this flow, get that information, and pass it back to the agent. So the use cases are, are immense. And I'd love for you to reach out on LinkedIn. Let me know what use cases you have for this. If you encounter any struggles, I'm happy to help as well. Thank you so much.